Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Yes. Happy Friday to you too, and to everybody. Thanks for joining us today. It's Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology change, innovation. This week, we're going to question AI, aren't we? We've spent a bit of time kind of
bigging it up.
So let's knock it down a peg or two.
Yeah.
But first of all, let's have a quick look at some news, Ben. So U.S. liability claims. U.S. liability insurance on the verge of breakdown from tide of claims. Insurers say companies could struggle to obtain cover for harm to workers and consumers in the FT this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a story that we've run before about social inflation, and Grace Church, we did some research with the IACP and others, and social inflation was quite a big issue in all of these liability classes, and it's becoming even more of a problem, according to this article, almost so that prices of casualty insurance have been rising, even though the market is softening generally in the world, and have gone up for 23 quarters in succession, according to Marsh. Wow. So prices are going up, but it's kind of worse than that, because they're now saying that perhaps we can't even write this business at all. I mean, it's a huge class of business. This is everything to do with, employment and claims and all that sort of stuff, liabilities with employers. So it's massive part of the insurance market. And this guy, Chief Exec Jim Williamson at Everest, is saying it's on the verge of, we're not going to write this business at all, full stop. And obviously the driver behind this is a legal system where there are very large, increasingly large awards to litigants, I suppose, on these claims, and also an industry in the financing of effectively claims litigation. And so there is a sort of thriving business in encouraging people to claim, rather, like the kind of old ambulance chasing, but in this market.
I was just going to say, kind of
funding litigation, basically.
Yeah, exactly. There's a weird business model whereby litigation was then kind of almost encouraged, and it was a spiral of doom.
Yes, and Evan Greenberg at Chubb came out a few weeks ago saying if there's any law firms that do this sort of litigation who are clients of Chubb, he will literally drop them, and because they're involved in it, and he's obviously frustrated as hell with it because it's undermining a product for employers that they want. And I actually have quite a lot of sympathy for this, because this is a facet of the litigious US society. But what you do, you want to kind of nip this in the bud and stop it, because otherwise it's going to happen everywhere, And it's just never a good thing when professionals, bankers and lawyers are kind of pushing something just simply to make money off it, because they see a kind of cheap opportunity, really. So you need it. I think you need this to settle down. So it's an important it's an important thing, social inflation, and it's not in a good place at the moment. All this casualty business, as it's called. So it'll hit the London market if of course there is people pulling out of it.
Yeah.
Full stop. We'll see. I mean, people often say these things and then it just rights itself somehow.
Yeah. And we were just talking kind of off air that it's kind of funny in the environment, in the softening market, the environment we find ourselves in, that there's this capital that isn't going to be able to find its way.
Yeah, exactly. And then ultimately people aren't going to be insured on this. They're going to find it. I mean, they're saying that nobody will insure this because it's uncertain.
Yeah.
Or actually, it's more certain that you're going to have a big payout, which is the problem.
Yes.
Really, it's not necessarily uncertain; it's certain. It's becoming more, So not good.
One to watch. Thanks for that, Ben. Right, let's dive into AI. So we've been talking quite a bit over the past few weeks, especially with TinTech last week, about the virtues of AI. But with every story, there is a flip side. There's there you are, Ben. Ben's just turned his light on now. I can see where he is.
I've forgotten to put my studio lights on. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, there we are.
Gollum. My precious. Yeah, no, here are. Ta-da.
Yep. So AI. So the other side of AI, I suppose, is what we're going to talk about today, and I guess the cost, the returns, where we are. Try and get away from some of the hype. And there's been a few stories in the press, kind of just unearthing some of the things that we're going to talk about now. This one in the FT that you spotted, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, when you're in a hype cycle, there's the seesaw keeps going one way and then the other way, and there's inevitably a kind of sort of different phases of this hype cycle. And I think we're never going to know the real outcome because we don't know the future. Even we don't know the future. But there is some kind of nice factual stuff that's coming out now and saying, well, okay, we don't know what's going to happen in the long run, but short term, I think there's a fair amount of evidence that this is taking a bit of time for this AI to sort of get a grip. So this article here by Richard Waters in the FT is saying what it says in the title, which is that it's not making the returns against the costs. So Sequoia, a consultancy, said that firms going forward are going to have to generate $600 billion in extra revenue. I'm assuming this is the US to justify the capital spend in 2024. This is their estimate. And that's 6 times more than they say they are likely to produce. So in other words, the cost, the capex that's going into AI is not in any way getting a return on the other side for that investment. Now, that's kind of one side of the argument. The other is, of course, that the bets are still piling in. NVIDIA, which when Deep Search came out, or whatever it was, DeepMind came out, lost something like $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion off its share price. Start to lose the numbers on these businesses slightly, but I always think, I don't know what they're worried about if they've got 1.5 trillion one day and it goes up to 4 trillion the next. I mean, it's fine, isn't it? You don't have a problem getting a takeaway on a Friday, do you, in that situation?
No. You just buy the takeaway and just
buy it. Yeah. I mean, it's like another world. So anyway, NVIDIA, the biggest chip maker in the world, is now at a record high. It's up 1.5 trillion, apparently, since that DeepMind story came out. And so therefore, there are bets and investment going into those businesses that AI is going to continue. But the investment by big tech in 2024 was $95 billion in AI in 2024, and it's projected to be 75 billion in 2025. The other aspect of this, of course, is data centers, which I'm not even going to touch on the sustainability argument, which is problematic because you have to cool these massive data centers down, and that creates a sustainability issue. But anyway, we'll put that to one side. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But they are going to. They're currently costing 333 billion, these data centers around the world, but they estimate that will go up to $1 trillion by 2030 invested in data centers. Pretty much A, unsustainable, and B, where are they all going to go? So you go then into the models, the actual products of businesses themselves. So OpenAI, which is the example used here, is through its subscriptions, it generates 10 billion of revenue. But most people don't pay OpenAI; they do it free. So only 3% of people, and I'm one of those, pays the 20 quid a month or whatever on a subscription. But that raises 10 billion.
Yeah.
But that is miles off the actual cost of OpenAI's investment. So effectively the losses are substantial in these organizations, even though the valuations are high. So the other argument here is that there is an explosion in usage by almost just consumers, loads of people using it, but not many people paying for it. I assume that ultimately the argument is, well, we will get these people to pay for it, and then there will be a balancing of the cost versus the revenue.
Yep.
So then you're working through, which the argument works through then, is how is AI being adopted by a business? So what's not working very well is things like co-pilots and things like that. That's not really made a big difference to anything. And I'm kind of not surprised, because I think I don't use Copilot myself, but a lot of people say to me it's a bit rubbish and it kind of gets in the way of things more than it helps.
Yeah, I don't use it either.
No, but a lot of people, just anecdotally, I hear kind of not great stories about Copilot, and it doesn't really work very well, but of course that could change. So the big bet now is on agents, but of course we talked about agents the other week, and the issue of having, and this is mentioned in this article, is that for agents to work, the concern is that you're going to have to you're going to have to reconfigure how business processes work to some extent. So look, all in all, nobody knows what's going to happen. It might all turn out well in the end, or it might not, and actually you could end up with a really nice, interesting kind of technology that everybody, man in the street, uses, but it's bloody expensive compared with the old internet searches, and it creates this sustainability issue in these data centers, which is going to have to be dealt with. And they're all trying to work out ways of doing this, and then you kind of at the other end of things trying to say, well, what does the product actually, is it going to actually make a difference? So there's a lot of real good questions asked about it, and I think it's good to have that bit of balance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are, let's go back to the kind of the implementation bit. I think what came out of the conference last week was there is an awful lot of foundational work that you need to do in order to get anywhere near having your organization in a place where it can really start to kind of re-engineer processes and start to leverage real value from it. Because I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Copilot, bring it in. I mean, that's fiddling around the edges like we've always done. You tweak something here, bring a bit of tech in here. I think,
and it's solution in search of a problem. Some of that stuff, isn't it? I mean, someone wrote yesterday, please take all these AI suggestive things off every single thing that you get on your computer now. And I agree with that, because most of it you don't need. I'd actually want to go and use it when I wanted to use it, not to have it forced on me all the time.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's kind of where we are, isn't it? Kind of grappling with,
where's it going to be used? Yeah,
exactly right. And then once you've kind of worked that out, understanding what you need to do on a very foundational level in terms of deeply understanding. I ran a couple of breakfasts this week where we were just talking about, well, do you really understand how decisions are being made in your organization now? And I'll tell you what the answer is. It's no.
Yeah.
You don't know why an underwriter makes that particular decision, because it is not a kind of something you put into a spreadsheet and an answer comes out at the bottom. It's about relationships, it's about past history, it's about future prospects, it's about how they're feeling, it's about all sorts of things. And then
it's this thing that we touched on, wasn't it, that AI is very good at linear problem solving, and that works really, really well. But anything that has any lateral stuff in it, it doesn't really deal with very well. So multitasking type jobs, are not easy. And I think it's true that, when you look at a lot of jobs that people do, and I'm going to come back to, the talent kind of thing and resistance, is that, if you take a sales job, say, for example, I mean, a sales job may not sound complicated or complex, but it's incredibly complex, I think, sales. And it's why it's so hard to find good salespeople. And what I think really good salespeople do is they take multiple sources, that could be anything from the intuitive in understanding of body language and people and relationships and so on, through to a bit of data. And, the great salespeople kind of pull all that together in the room, and then people go, yeah, I want that, right? And that's not going to be done by a computer, an AI, because what comes out of AI isn't really sales material. It's, it's kind of cheesy stuff, and it's fine, and it's kind of helpful in some ways. But is that, because it's so ubiquitous now, are people going to pay a lot of money for that? It's commoditized already almost, isn't it, that AI feedback? So it's not, in other words, it's not kind of adding value to what a salesperson already does. It's just helping them with a bit of heavy lifting on the, when you're short of time before the meeting. But are people going to pay thousands of pounds for that? No, they're not. Because all, the consumer model as is free, basically. I don't need to pay for it.
And that actually segues nicely into kind of the second kind of story that we've got here, which is kind of how it is creating and then destroying value in almost a few months. So this is a kind of Reddit, how it uses AI and sells it. And then, well, you give us the summary, Ben.
So Reddit, and in case anybody doesn't know, Reddit is a kind of conversation channel, but it's about like solutions and product reviews and all sorts of advice, and it's huge, and it's an amazing business model because everybody basically goes on here, gives their advice, and it's free, right? It's just free content that the business Reddit gets, and then it generates revenue off the advertising, and it's been hugely successful. And I think they're worth about 20 billion as a business, and they're growing rapidly. But it's a human platform, right? So it's a human conversational platform, and I highly recommend people use it because I found it really useful myself. Anyway, so Reddit has also done deals with AI companies because it has this huge data set of conversations. The AI companies really want to use this data to train their models, and so they've struck really loads and loads of deals with them, Google and OpenAI and all that lot. And so that's fine. But then what's happened is the advertisers have cottoned on to this and realized that the LLMs are being trained by effectively Reddit stuff. So the advertisers are plowing into Reddit, getting on there, so they're getting loads of advertising revenue, but the advertisers want to influence what happens on Reddit so that it ends up in the LLMs of the future. And now Reddit is saying, God, that's a problem, because what's going to start to happen, of course, is that we might now get AI taking over our platform, and we need it to remain human. So in some areas, they've got fights with people who, they say have, illegally scraped their site. So they've got a big case with Anthropic at the moment. And but what they're what they're trying to do as well is they've got 100 million users, and they're trying to make sure with these new kind of human checks that are being done, and then funny enough, they're being produced by AI companies. Get it? But, yeah, it's so incestuous, this world. So they do something called World ID, I think, which comes from OpenAI. So
Right.
I think Altman produces that, and he sells it to Reddit to check that there are real humans doing these conversations and to kick out those who are not. So yes, it becomes kind of incestuous, but it also becomes, it's kind of this kind of gargantuan titanic battle, I suppose, over human versus computer conversation. Now, I don't think humans will run out of conversation, to be honest, because I think they're endlessly interesting because we're humans. But I think the problem comes when if the AI runs out of conversation, it just becomes, as I say, a bit of a commodity, and potentially really easily recognizable when it's used in a kind of creative context, or where you want a bit of richness, I suppose.
Yeah. It's funny.
Sweet talking. That's the phrase sweet talking. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
You kind of it's become a kind of an economic descriptor of what sales is. It's sweet talking is how you grow businesses and all that sort of thing. But there's a huge amount that goes into it. But you can't easily replicate sweet talking.
Yeah. So that's a kind of incestuous relationship that you would say. It always strikes me when you go onto a website and he says, please verify that you're not a robot, and you tick the box, and then there's a robot behind it who's making sure that you're not a robot. It's like, hang on a minute, where does this all end?
Yeah, of course, intuitively that lots of this stuff is really not going to work. It's smoke and mirrors, and it's all a bit of a joke. I mean, scammers tell you that. The kind of cyberspace tells you that actually these people, how do they get around it? How do they get through? They just do social engineering. They talk to people who let them into systems and all sorts. So, we're running headlong into this world, and that's what's going to happen, and there's no going back on it. But again, I think at least here we're a sort of oasis of sanity.
I'll get a jingle for that. Oasis of sanity.
I think that could be our strap line.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think, mind you, this next piece, which is your story about how AI is now recommending jobs for you, Ben.
Yeah.
I think it's
how well it's working in practice.
Yeah, so let me add this to the so
yeah, I don't know, people get I start to get these job recommendations, promotions on my LinkedIn feed, and this was one that I got a couple of days ago for Claire's accessories. Which is like one thing. I mean, I know I probably have got something that they've recognized that would be relevant to working, probably, I imagine, in some sort of strategic role at Claire's. I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. Model.
Sorry, a model.
Yeah, model.
Yeah. That's going to happen. But I know I could advise them on the latest earring trends or ankle bracelet trends or belly button piercings or whatever they do in there. But I suppose a lot of I'm not diminishing Claire's, but I don't know really why I'm a target for that. But then even worse, almost, I've got one this morning saying explore job opportunities at HMRC. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I honestly would just have to get the gun out and finish it all off if that was where I was going to work.
Imagine that.
I mean, I can't imagine anything worse. I mean, I think I'd probably help them. God knows they need help, but I don't want to work there. Anyway, the targeting's just terrible as ever.
Yeah.
Apart from that thin conference company that comes up everywhere, that seems to know what I'm doing.
Yeah, they follow. They track you. You're
That's
on our.
incredible, that thing. Yeah, that's like being stalked.
I enjoy spending the money just to get it in your feed. It must annoy the hell out of you. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah.
So that's
Massive ad from Tim, covering everything on the page.
worth every penny.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you. Let me give you some balance. And so I have had a really good experience, Ben. So we often talk about buying insurance as a kind of a grudge purchase. Nobody wants to do it. Blah blah blah. Whether it's personal lines, whether it's companies or wherever else. But I also kind of, when I think about that kind of transaction, it's always the same with like remortgaging. That's the same thing. You just like, look, can somebody just give me the best deal? I don't want to do all the research, blah blah blah, and it's just a pain and all that kind of stuff. So, and I say this every few years, but this company, Habito, have really nailed it. They're an online mortgage broker essentially, and you put in your details, what you want, and as you know, as a small business owner, there are only a few products that they will give us without reams and reams of paperwork.
Oh God, yeah, terrible, yeah.
So because we kind of fall out the bracket of normal people with jobs and all that kind of thing. So they put in you put in your details.
Accessory employees.
Yeah, exactly. You're not one of them. So you put your details in once, which I did like 7 years ago or something, and then they basically just go, has anything changed? And you go, nah, I'm still doing the same thing I was 7 years ago. Okay, good, tick. Here are the products that are available to you.
Oh, great.
There you go. And you go, okay, you choose your products and you let them know, and they go, okay, that's fine. I'll contact them, the mortgage company for you. I'll do all that. And I said to them, oh, if I'm going to remortgage, I want to make a prepayment. So I want to pay down some of my mortgage before I get the new one while I've got the thing. And they were going, okay, that's fine. I need to contact them. They contacted them. And then they said, right, you can now make the prepayment without having a fee. I was like, brilliant. That's good.
Right.
They suggested that I ring up the company Santander. And I was just immediately going, oh my God, really? Can I not just transfer the money? And they were going, no, just give them a ring, because then they'll tie it to the conversation I've had as your broker.
Yeah.
Because it's all done online. I haven't spoken to anybody. Yeah. It's all done through. And you can do it through text or email or whatever you prefer. WhatsApp. And I was like going, okay, I'll give it a whirl. Anyway, it worked. I rang them up, gave them my account number, went through security, paid the money. It's all been tied up. I mean, there's such, and I just kind of reflected on this morning, there's such a low bar that I've got in terms of service when it comes to financial services, utilities, airlines. I just expect
HMRC.
HMRC. I just expect it.
God, terrible. Honestly, terrible.
Yeah, they need new employees there. I just expect it not to work. And when it does work, I mean, it just worked as it should do. And I was like going, actually, oh God, that was great. So I think there's a massive opportunity if you can get it right, this kind of balance between humans, data, probably a little bit of AI in the background, just helping them with a script. Just, they nudge you at the right time, and it's not evasive, and it's a really nice tone.
I think you're right. And what you're saying is that actually, do we need to have all sorts of fancy, hugely invested AI in these things? You don't. You just need someone to sit down and work out what do people want in this service. It's basically working out the customer journey, isn't it? And then applying the digital where you need it, because you were obviously asked to do something in person at the right point without too much hassle.
Yeah. Solved the problem, and away we go. So yeah. Always give them a plug. I think they're great.
That's great. What a great recommendation.
Hope that helps somebody with their terrible remortgaging. If it's anything like me, I mean, it's an utter nightmare. You go onto those comparison websites and they go, oh, here's the deal. Then you go through, fill in all the paperwork, and oh, you're self-employed essentially. You don't have it.
Can't have it.
Yeah, it's useless. Utterly useless.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So they found a brilliant gap in the market, and it's also free to use. Santander or whatever pay them.
Great.
For the service, the distribution.
Yeah. It's good. Great.
All good. All good. Right. Where are we going next?
Tipping point.
Tipping point. That's so one. What the hell's all this about?
What the hell? So this is this is funny. This is the insurer in full. Fair enough. And it's not that full an article. If I'm being honest, insurer, it's a bit thin. If you're listening, I want more when it's in full.
Yeah.
Full fat articles with charts and data. Anyway, this doesn't do it, but it does make an interesting point in saying, maybe overplaying it slightly, saying that some people, including Simon Squires of AXA XL, I think you know.
Yes, I do.
And others are saying, including all the associations have signed up to this Accord, who do the standards, Global Reinsurance and Large Commercial Carrier, GRLC, had to have an acronym obviously here in this market. And I will never remember what that stands for, by the way. So the acronym doesn't even help. But they're saying that they're at a tipping point or a watershed. I think they're the same thing in the thesaurus dictionary definition. But Chris Newman went for watershed. Simon Squires went for tipping point. But the point they're making is
at the end
change. They should have got themselves aligned on the wording.
Yeah. And
both were among leading figures, it says here, saying that actually now, because of these Accord standards that are being put in, will all these underwriting, everybody will move away from documents and they'll be trading like crazy. Data-driven trading is going to happen. And Verisk is in on this as well, saying the same. It could all happen. But there are some naysayers. Our old friend Jeff Ward at Ebix is saying, don't get carried away. Don't get carried away. He's questioning how that's going to really happen. He said there's still too much of a mix of analog and digital in the market for this to really work. I'm going to go, Jeff. You know, if there's a fight between Squires and Ward, I'm going Ward corner on this at the moment.
I'd say it would be an interesting matchup. Knowing that Jeff is always armed with a stick.
Yes, that's good. So he could use that. But I'm going for Ward on this because I think he's correct. And the data that we've got would say it's a very incredibly kind of messy situation now around digital trading. And I tip my hat to all the Verisks and people who are doing great work in this area and trying hard as they can to get it all in. But there is I think there's still quite a way to go from where we are now from some of the work that we've done. So I'd be in the Ward category. And actually, Tim Rayner at Verisk says something kind of adjacent to what Jeff is saying, which is that it's all kind of there if you want it, boys and girls. But if you don't want to step up and do it, then that's your choice. So he's kind of saying, if, you know, kind of culturally you want to resist this, then that's it. So there is this idea of a jigsaw, you know, that all these standards pull the jigsaw together, which again sounds very nice conceptually. Hopefully that'll work. And they're also saying that it's the big companies that are prepared to take the punt on this, really, at the moment. Smaller companies haven't really got the resource to do this. So, you know, that's probably what we knew 5 years ago, that it was the big companies are going to go massively digital because they've got deep pockets and they see potentially huge returns for them if they embrace digital trading globally.
Yeah. So Simon Squires and Marsh at TinTech last week actually gave a kind of, it wasn't really a demo. They just kind of hosted a discussion pod about the future of this. Now, unfortunately, I was running in another session, but I wasn't in it. But I have seen kind of the slides and the presentation of where they're taking it. So I think whether it's a tipping point and a watershed moment, unsure. It's certainly a step in the direction of digital trading happening. And I think you're absolutely right, Ben. You know, AXA XL, Marsh, deep pockets. They've obviously put money behind this, got it working. You know, they are actually. It's not a prototype. It's going. And I think if they then, in a similar vein to Tesla, kind of release the source code and go, here we are.
Yeah.
That would be a tipping point, I think.
You know, all these things have to have benefits, and it's the benefits that drive it in the end, isn't it? And I think it's down to, I mean, all the technology I've seen in London and elsewhere, and I've been through a few waves, haven't we? You know, I'll give you an example. So the ECF system in claims, which was mandated many years ago now, probably as many as 15, 12, 13 years ago. I mean, it was very interesting because we tracked the whole development of that, and actually all the brokers were kind of hated it to begin with, even though their bosses said it was the greatest thing that's ever been invented. And the insurers, you know, said, oh, it's a bit of a pain, you know, because we don't get to meet the brokers, and we'll never ever meet a broker again type thing. So for quite a long time, tracking ECF was that it was really not heavily, you know, adopted, although they were mandated to use it, but nobody really liked it. And what happened was, in fact, brokers started to realize that there was an audit trail. So enough of them had experiences of claims going a bit, you know, nasty, litigious perhaps, and then going, oh, actually everything's on this system. Fantastic. It's not, we're not sifting through paper files and lost documents and all that sort of stuff. And that was the big benefit. And that really did create a tipping point. I think I may have described it as a I don't think I described it as a watershed. I think I said there maybe was a tipping point. I'll show you the data one week on here, because I think it is, I don't think there's anything new in the world. I think that there has to be a collective perceived benefit. And because you've got a value chain operating here where people collaborate, I think it's more complex, because, you know, an underwriter and a broker, for example, have to both see either equivalent or different benefits that align. And if one party says, well, I don't really care about putting data in because it doesn't help me, it's just extra work, then, you know, unless it's mandated, you're a bit screwed, I think, in those situations. So, you know, systems in the end there was that, I think the guy from Hiscox at your London tech conference said that, you know, you get the project and then you work out what you're actually going to do in tech, or IT, because it'll be totally different when you come to actually implement it.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true, that you don't actually know how. There's some great work, I think we quoted it, talked about it on here years ago, which was, I think, Microsoft, which was how people use any piece of software, you know, that actually the developers put something out there and they're really clueless, because they usually are just developers and they don't really know what the job is that they're sort of trying to help with. They've got a few stabs in the dark. But then the best software kind of, you know, kind of develops over time, because people go, that bit there is really useful, you know, and that bit there, that's really useful. That helps me. And all that stuff that you thought was going to be brilliant, I hardly touch.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, that's how they learn, really, by putting it out to market through experience. And so I mean, this problematic thing with this is why I'm in the Ward camp, is because it, you know, the whole jigsaw argument sounds too good to be true. It sounds too neat and tidy to me.
Yeah.
In a market that, you know, is not neat and tidy in the slightest. Culturally, tech-wise, silos everywhere, you know, a huge amount of different business models operating. It is a very, very messy market to drop, you know, neat and tidy technology into. But good luck, guys.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out. I'm going to be supporting them, actually. I'm going to do a few events with them.
Oh my God. Well, that's the end of that then.
Hey, come on.
That is the end of that.
Look, I never said I was going to invest in them. I said I'm going to help them.
I'm definitely in the Ward camp now. No, I'm only joking. I'm sure you'll be extremely helpful.
I'll try my best. As listeners know, anybody who follows me in investments is a lot poorer than when they started.
Yeah. You
Anyway.
you run the village fete well, so that's that is one small tick in the box for your expertise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That was good. Good. Talking about village fates, are you going to Glastonbury, Ben?
No, I'm not going to Glastonbury. I'm quite glad because it's going to be bloody hot this weekend, isn't it? So I'm not. I wouldn't want to be 30 degrees, in the sun, baking heat, listening to bands that are on for a bit too long. But I mean, I like it. I've always watched it on telly. Love it.
Yeah, I do as well. I thought you might be taking the band up there, doing a secret gig. Pulp.
Yeah, my daughter's there. I'm not going to go. I don't really like discomfort. I don't really like camping. Basically, that's kind of what turns me off massively.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't been for many decades, but it's a great.
I don't like camping. I don't have to like having to use public facilities.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't massively like people. Lots of people, or people generally. So that's another issue.
Yeah, there are quite a few people going. I've heard.
I know, and there was one guy on who said Lyle Carney, I think his name is, who's quite a nice young rapper,
right?
And he's a British guy, and he was saying that his set is 1 hour, is 90 minutes, and he said I think it's too long, and I agree with him. He said, and he's a young guy, and he's doing the bloody show, and he's saying it's too long, and I think an hour and a half for some of these Glastonbury sets is way too long.
Yeah,
I think they should be shorter.
I think during the day, aren't they a bit? They're like 45 minutes, and then they have a 20-minute turnaround for the next act, and then they get a bit longer as the day goes on.
Well, he's saying he's doing 90 minutes, and I don't know that they're all that, but they won't. Rod Stewart won't do 90 minutes. He'd be in a bit of trouble, wouldn't he? His age.
Yeah.
He's by the way, just this is not a thing I researched for the show, but he is going for the fastest 100-meter sprinter of his age group.
I did know that because it was in The Guardian last Saturday.
Was it in The Guardian? I don't read The Guardian. I read The Times, but it was in there too, yeah.
Yeah, so, and apparently he does quite a lot of underwater to keep his lung capacity and singing going.
Okay.
Frank told him that. And to keep
him. I mean, it's great, really.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's
to still have that drive, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we can
in his 80s, yeah, and he does look good.
He does. That was
it. I'm not going. No, I'm going to be here in my own little rural idyll.
Very good. That was one of the questions in my mum and dad's quiz: is what does my dad have in common with Rod Stewart? And we put down as the answer: were they both married to Penny Lancaster at some point? Turns out he's got the same birthday. So
that's a boring one, isn't it? But yeah,
it's because my dad's 80 as well this year. So,
yeah, cool.
Very good. Okay.
What about you? What are you up to?
What am I? I'm going to watch Glastonbury all weekend and do nothing.
Okay.
In the sun. So that's going to be me. Oh, I'm putting together a table tennis table for Ben. Because it was his birthday on Monday, so I got him a table tennis table.
Yeah, it's my son's birthday as well. Yes, so we have a table tennis table already. I might get it out if I could be bothered to get it out of the garage and put it in the garden.
Yeah, we should bring it to the next conference, and we can have a tournament, like a fringe event, which is a tournament, table tennis tournament.
Yeah, I'm not bad.
On table tennis tournament.
Yeah,
we'll have to give it an acronym. But Ping pong. Yeah.
Tin pong. There you go.
Thanks.
It's a tin pong tournament. Got it, haven't I? Creativity. AI couldn't have done that.
No, thank God. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, all. Bye.